who grew up loving wrestling, who gets to play fight in his underwear and make toys about guys in their underwear. And then talk about those plastic guys in their underwear. Life could be worse. Sometimes I'm looking around, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Never understand when people complain about celebrities ruining the business or exposing the business. Like, did you not watch WrestleMania 1? The main event had Mr. T in it. Like, what are we doing here?
You were one of the first YouTubers, 2011. Yes. But then also the action figures, and there's a bunch behind you right now. Yeah. When did you really get into the action figures, and what has that meant to your career?
Listen, I always loved action figures. I had your action figures, Coach. I was always a collector, but when I got on the main roster, I certainly wasn't telling anybody about it. I wasn't saying like, hey, JBL, I just found a new figure at Target, Imagine if that would have happened.
Oh, he would have shredded you. He would have shredded you.
They would have broke the figure, shit in my bag, kicked me out of the locker room. But I don't blame those guys. I say this all the time. I don't blame those guys because they didn't grow up with this stuff.
Yeah.
I was one of the first of my generation who grew up loving wrestling, watching it on Saturday mornings, chasing the ice cream man for the ice cream bars, having the figures, having the wrestling buddies, the video games. When those guys were growing up, that stuff didn't exist. Of course, there was wrestling, but they were in the ice cream bars. You couldn't go into Toys R Us to see the figures. You couldn't play the video games. So I grew up on that stuff. And I just, of course, I always collected it. Myself, Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins, we always did it in hiding, in secret. And then eventually, we realized, fuck it. No, what are they going to do to us? And we just embraced it. And while we were in WWE, we started a podcast. But we were smart enough then to make it. It wasn't Zack, Ryder, and Kurt Hawkins' podcast. It was Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. Because I learned through that YouTube show, once you create it, whether it's there or not, if you use their IP, it's theirs. And that's fine.
Correct.
But I learned that the hard way with the YouTube show. So I'm like, we're going to do this, Matt and Brian. And then when we got fired, luckily, that's what kept us afloat for a couple of months during the pandemic. Because we had this podcast and we thought, oh my God, who's going to want to buy collectibles and talk about collectibles? Turned out everybody did. And our podcast exploded during the pandemic.
That's amazing.
We've since turned that into our own toy company where we make toys.
Tell me what that's about.
So it's called collectmajor.com. We make figures. I got one right here. This is our new Harley race figure, bloody, with the NWA title.
Wow.
These are based off the 80s figures, those big rubber guys from the 80s. That's what we call them. We call them big rubber guys. And it's just a passion project for us that's turned into, a business. And hopefully it becomes a real business. We've just signed Rambo. We're getting into other lines besides wrestling. And it's fun. It's oh, who do we want to make? Okay. And then let's say Demolition. We'll track down Demolition. And we're not, this is all officially licensed. There's contract involved. There's royalty checks involved. These guys are making money. Yeah, it's a real deal. Now, we're not making as many as Mattel. You can't find us in Target or Walmart, a couple thousand, but it's going right to the talent. And then the talent on the convention circuit, these independent circuit, get to sign the figure. So they're making even more money. So they're getting the royalty check and someone's paying them to sign the figure. So it's been a lot of fun.
But you know what I say all the time? I know you just, we're not as big as this. We're not big as that. But those companies started somewhere too.
Sure.
Right? And that's, I think now as I've launched my own brands and my own shows and we're on these big distribution platforms, I've started to embrace that you got to start with one.
Absolutely.
And then move on. And that's kind of what you've done. And I think as people look at you now as you move forward, what do you want the Matt Cardona legacy to be? Because in my opinion, I don't know if you'll ever need to go back to one of the big places in order for you to be happy or for you to maximize your dollars.
Sure. And listen, I agree with you 100%. I will say I'd be lying if I said I never wanted to wrestle at Madison Square Garden again or have a giant WrestleMania moment or wrestle Wembley Stadium like AEW did. Of course I would, because there are certainly times on the indies, my fanny pack's full of cash on the merch table. I had a kick-ass match at a kick-ass venue. The fans are awesome. I love this. Then there are times I'm looking around. I'm what am I doing with my life? You know what I'm saying? I can't pretend it's all this amazing experiences. There's certainly times where it's not, but it's part of the journey. I take the good with the bad. And, I use the nickname in wrestling, Always Ready, but I truly believe I'm always ready. If Triple H called me right now or Tony Khan called me right now, I could be ready tomorrow. I need to get a tan right now. I haven't gotten a tan, but other than that, ring shape, ready to go. But for now, I'm just focused on I'm not so much focused on creating my legacy because yes, we are getting older, but I feel like I'm in the prime of my career, maybe not even the prime of my career. And I have so many other side things, the podcast, the toy business. I'm just having such a great time. Like at the end of the day, I'm this kid who grew up loving wrestling, who gets to play fight in his underwear and make toys about guys in their underwear. And then talk about those plastic guys in their underwear. Life could be worse.
It really could be. And I think when you look at your interests and I look at the last 5 years, it's amazing. And you've got to, because I do, I give myself a little bit of credit that when I was leaving WWE to go to ESPN, nobody had ever done it before.
Right.
And now you see guys going from ESPN, Joe Tessitore, going to WWE. And I kind of opened that door.
Sure.
And now for a guy like you, you've got Fanatics. You've got Fanatics Collectibles. You've got all these things that are now partnering with the WWE that never would have happened 15 or 20 years ago. And that's got to make you feel pretty good.
I think, it's just great that collecting, back in the day when I was talking about those JBL stories, right? It was like that movie, The 40-Year-Old Virgin was out, where the guy was a legit virgin for collecting figures. I mean, you've seen my wife. She's pretty hot, and I'm certainly not a virgin, and I'm playing with these figures,
Touche.
Times have changed. Times have changed. And there's money. There's, at the end of the day, the most important thing, there's money to be made with these collectibles, with these trading cards. And I think, WWE, even AEW, they're embracing that as they should.
It's about being creative. And
Sure.
it's about not just, and I think that's, you hear the good and you hear the bad of Vince McMahon. You and I both, I was way too close to him for a lot of years. But a lot of the things that he did not allow. Hey, Vince, can I go do this? Hey, Vince, I got an offer to do this. Is part of the reason why Rock had to leave cold turkey to go do movies, because Vince didn't really want to share like they are today.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine Vince having a guy in the main event of WrestleMania and having to move your shows overseas for 3 weeks in order to accommodate him, or not have him on the show the last 2 weeks heading into WrestleMania because he's shooting a movie? That never would have happened before,
a lot of things
right?
have changed for sure. 100%. Yeah.
What do you think was the premise for that? What kind of turned that corner?
I'm not sure what made the what made everything turn the corner, but I mean, just look at it now. It's on Netflix. You turn on Netflix to binge watch some murder show, and it's right there. Cody Rhodes. There's no arguing that whatever they're doing is working, right? All these celebrities want to come, all these comedians, athletes. WWE, it's hot again. And it's not just hot, it's really hot. Like I said, you turn on Netflix to binge some murder show, and it's just right there. Cody Rhodes, right there. Man, if WWE's becoming a household name once again, and I love it because it only trickles down to everything else. All the independents, it makes AEW bigger, TNA bigger. If wrestling gets bigger, if one company succeeds, I think we all can succeed.
There's no doubt about it. I have a lot of friends who are, mid to late 40s. And say, for example, when I Show Speed was in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And he absolutely gets just cut in half by Braun Breaker. And they're like, why in the world would they waste a spot on him? I said, guys, instead of bitching about that, look at the other side of it. And
sure.
I give I Show Speed a ton of credit because I thought he would have broken his arm because he didn't take it correctly. But that's what you get with celebrities. And we had so many of those moments for you and I when a celebrity would come in, and most of them would not be willing to take that bump like I Show Speed did. But he's got millions and millions and millions of followers. So for the guy that's my age that doesn't understand it, you got millions that do.
I never understand when people complain about celebrities saying it's ruining the business or exposing the business. Did you not watch WrestleMania 1? The main event had Mr. T in it. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? There's been celebrities. There's always been celebrities. It's an attraction. There's always been celebrities. Drew Carey was in the Royal Rumble. Come on.
But I will say this, though. Vince didn't like having them. Remember, Vince didn't want... He was like, my talent, they're the celebrities. I don't need extra celebrities. I'll never forget my last WrestleMania during my first run was in Orlando. And it was the one where we paid Kim Kardashian $25,000 to show up and announce the attendance. And I remember sitting at ringside, and she had to bring out a card because she couldn't remember the number. And I remember saying to myself, going, what is Vince thinking in my ear right now? As she says, ladies and gentlemen, a brand new Citrus Bowl record of 68,275. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I just started just roaring because part of whether you like Vince or you don't like Vince, he's a character. And there's certain things that just pissed him off. And I can only imagine something like that with Snoop Dogg in the very next trailer at the same show, that it just drove him nuts. But that was kind of the beauty of the WWE that you and I grew up in.
Absolutely. I mean, WWE, like I said, like the good, the bad, the highs, the lows. I'm so grateful for that time. It set me up for what's going on now. And like, I just look at it with fond memories. Of course, like I could discuss sometimes, oh, maybe that wasn't the best, right? But I don't want to harp on that. I don't want to be negative and I just never wanted to be one of those guys. I saw it, like I said, in so many shoot interviews and like hearing so many legends talking and bitch. I'm like, ugh, I want to be the opposite of that, you know?
I want to be a guy that at the end of the day, I still have what I feel is 25 or 30 years left on camera doing content, whatever that content looks like. And I never thought, Matt, that I'd be doing shows, podcasts, network shows, and then also working with PFL and ESPN. Like all this stuff, you never, ever know. But now as we start to move forward and you see all the stuff in the business that has changed, specifically Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, I don't think anybody could have imagined 10 years ago, the way it happened with CM Punk, that 10 years later, that he would be a main event star with the WWE. How surprised were you with those two things in particular, going from AEW back to WWE?
Man, the Cody thing was super interesting because for the first time, I think in wrestling history, he came with the total package, his music, you know, because when he left, he was independent first, created his own music, his own look, his own logos, and owned all that. So he had it in AEW, and then when he jumped to WWE, it was all exactly the same exact logo, same exact song. It was like, wow, like when you really think about it, it's never ever been done. There's always a little change to the song, a little change to the name, change to the look. He was the first guy to ever do it. And then CM Punk coming back, I mean, man, I did not see that coming, but look what it's done for the business. Look at the numbers, look at his merch sales. It's incredible. And now that he's finally getting a WrestleMania main event, like I bet he probably didn't even think it was ever going to happen. And that, like anything could happen in pro wrestling. Right, anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. Anything can happen in pro wrestling. It truly can. And it's like there's no rules, there's no formula, there's nothing to follow because everyone has a different path. You know, I try to tell these guys in the independents, like, just because I'm telling you this, don't listen to everything I'm saying, right? Because everyone has a different journey. Like, I can get a phone call tomorrow to go somewhere.
Changes.
Anything changes. That's the beauty of pro wrestling is that like nobody's stuck in that spot, good or bad. You're not gonna be at the top forever. You're not gonna be at the bottom forever. It could always change.
I will say this, that the way that CM Punk is a unicorn is that any young talent that's ever talked to me, I'm like, do not leave scorched earth behind you.
Right.
Because you never know when that person is going to call you, or because it's happened to me a few times, not that I had scorched earth, but that a person called me that I hadn't talked to in 2 or 3 years. Hey, we've got an opening for this or for that. Now, he did leave scorched earth, and he still was able to come back. But I said this, that Vince always lived under the moniker, if it makes money, it makes sense.
Sure.
And Stone Cold walked away 5 times. I don't know if you remember this or not. We were supposed to wrestle on a pay-per-view.
I remember.
And he didn't show up because he felt like it was below him. Now, it was below him. Let's be honest about that. But I missed out on a payday, but I haven't, I've moved on from that. But that's how serious a guy like Stone Cold took the business back then, is that he was like, if it's below me, then I'm not going to do it. But Vince always allowed him to come back because Stone Cold made money and it made sense, right?
Yes. I mean, to this day, you sell Stone Cold Steve Austin's t-shirt, probably going to outsell most of the roster. You know what I'm saying? Like, he definitely makes no sense, you know?
Did you see the video that he just did? And all these come through your algorithm. And you don't know exactly when the interview was done, but he was talking about how, we all get our merch checks every 3 months.
I did see this, yes.
Do you still get one? I get one every 3 months.
I do get one, but it's not like Austin's, I'll tell you that.
Mine is always between $72 and $74.
Yeah,
like $73.62.
I still get one, but it's something very similar to that. I think they got to at least sign me to a Legends deal. I get some Mattel figures under the Zack Ryder name, some Topps cards.
Something.
Get that royalty check up. Let me still do my independent stuff, and you can have Zack Ryder make some money off that.
All you want.
Yeah, take it.
Oh my God! And he said that he walked into Vince's office when he was starting to sell all the different shirts. And I remember I was there when they did the Fuck Fear shirt, and I remember sitting backstage going, I understand that the U is a skull and crossbones, but we're literally selling a T-shirt with the word "fuck" on it.
Yeah.
And apparently it didn't bother anybody else. No. I was like, well, what are we doing? And it became like the hottest seller in the history of time. He's like, I don't think my check reflects accurately how many I'm selling. And he said the next quarter, Vince hand delivered him the check because he wanted to make sure that he adjusted his percentage for whatever he was making. That is stroke.
Yes.
If I've ever heard one, right?
100%. Yeah, I never had that stroke. That's for sure.
I certainly didn't either. My first T-shirt I made at a T-shirt shop down on Main Street, and I wore it in my pay-per-view. Coach, when's that on sale? Never. You can go make it for $19.99.
My first T-shirt, they made it. It was at the time called like a basic shirt, so it didn't have a back. It was just like me, like this, like on the front. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna make this sell. I'm gonna make this. So this is when I started. Like I was starting to get a little buzz on the internet. I'm like, I'm gonna make this sell because I'm gonna make them notice you got to use this guy. And this is even before I started my YouTube show. So what I did this is like Twitter is just starting out. I did something. If you buy this shirt, I will send you an autographed Topps card. My friend worked for Topps and got me like a couple thousand Zack Ryder cards.
So smart.
So if they were DMing me, posting proof, I'd sign it, literally sign it, write their address, put a stamp on it, send it off. And that's what kind of started the whole snowball thing of me, like, with the connection with the audience when I wasn't on TV, when I wasn't featured. I was on TV, but I wasn't featured on TV. I was the guy already or it's getting smacked by the jackass hand when Johnny Knoxville was on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't the guy you wanted to root for. So I use social media as a tool I always knew the connection is what was so important. I knew back then, I don't know if it was just natural or what. I just knew that I need these fans to care about me, and that will start to change everything. Then I started the YouTube show, and we could have a whole another show about the YouTube show. But I just knew early on, like maybe because I'm a fan at heart, maybe that's what it is. I was a fan. Like I wanted to root for the guys that, like, even back in the day when the internet first started, like, remember like Shane Helms had like a Q&A thing on his website, or Jericho or Lance Storm, Matt Hardy, those are the guys I really like felt connected to. Cause I could, like, even though I wasn't asking the questions before, like Twitter and stuff like that, you probably like email in the questions, but like they would respond to fans, like, whoa, it's so cool. They care about their fans. And I just kind of always wanted to be that guy too.
Well, as we wrap things up, and I appreciate the time, we like to keep this to 40 to 45 minutes.
Oh, sorry, we're going over.
No. We've realized, as you look at metrics, like after like 15 minutes, it falls off. Plus, I appreciate your time so very much. Let's talk about the future now. Let's talk about what the next year or two is going to look like in the Matt Cardona household, because you have so much going on. And are you going to be in Vegas?
I will be in Vegas. I'll be there on Thursday night. We have our live podcast at the Palms. I'll be at WrestleCon all 4 days. I'll be Chelsea Green's date to the Hall of Fame. So I will be there. So come to WrestleCon, get an autograph, buy an action figure, do something. I'll be there. Are you gonna be there, Coach?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna be where I'm sitting right now. I'm gonna be in Orlando because I've started this new role with the PFL, Professional Fighters League. So I'm like a talent / kind of executive. But we have 4 straight events. And unfortunately, we have an event on the 18th, which is next Friday, which sucks because there's an event April 17th. And this is another question I had to ask you before we get out of here. I'm helping a guy you may know of called Jeremiah James.
Yes.
And they have a red carpet event for the last match, the musical. And that's what I wanted to wrap up with today, because the future, I believe, that could really be big. And you were one of the first ones to sign on. And when he told me that you were a part of the early run of that, I was shocked. What made you decide you wanted to do a musical? So
when Jeremiah, similar to that death match, when Jeremiah emailed me about this, I was like, no way. Not singing and dancing. This is gonna suck. This is gonna make a mockery out of pro wrestling. But then, I agreed to it and I read the script and I'm like, this is actually pretty damn good. And then when I was doing the rehearsals, like, wow, this is like really good. Then when I did the show, I was like, whoa, this is really good. Like, because like, I didn't know what to, I've never done like Broadway or anything like that. And the other people hadn't done wrestling. Right. So when I'm out there, I was kind of ad-libbing because I'm not going by the script because I'm listening to the people because now we're in like a wrestling match.
Right.
The show ends with a match. It ends with a match. So I'm playing off the crowd. I'm kind of going off the script, but they're trained act. They know what they're doing too. So they're playing off the people too. So it was like, we got magic here. We were playing with the crowd too much. The show ran like so long. we got to trim some things because I don't think anyone took into account that wrestling fans are interactive and you can't ignore them. You got to play into it. So now the last match, hopefully it's going to take over the whole world. Right now, I'm not attached to the role of Alexander Swagger, but if they get a permanent residency, sorry to the current Alexander Swagger, I'm taking my spot back.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
But
no, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? But I just couldn't, with the way the schedule has been, I couldn't, take off of pro wrestling. Because right now, if I was at the end of my career or something like that, or I hadn't made it yet, this would be great. But right now, it's like, I'm just about to turn 40. It's like make or break.
You got to do it. You got to do everything that comes your way. 100%. Right. So we had Jeremiah on the show last week, and he announced that they're going to be doing a like an abbreviated version, like 30 to 45 minutes on Thursday, April 17th, which is actually when this full interview is going to drop. And he dropped the bomb that Samantha Irvin, or whatever her last name is going to be participating in that.
Wow.
How cool is that?
That's really cool. I think it's great because I know on the other incarnation of the show, like Mackenzie Mitchell did it, Matt Raywall from TNA did it. So like, I think that's great when you use some real wrestlers and some actors. Listen, at the end of the day, they are taking bumps. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's something that I didn't think was going to work, but works so well. And I hope it really explodes. And whoever's in Vegas for WrestleMania should definitely check it out.
So we already gave away 10 free tickets. They went they went fast to the red carpet event. You can't even buy tickets. It's just an industry event, and a lot of fans we literally said, okay, first 5, and they were gone like that. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I as I've talked to him more, and I guess you could call me a consultant on it.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed his enthusiasm. But for people who don't know anything about it, and you had 30 seconds to describe this to them, what would you say?
It is a wrestling storyline that culminates in a match through a Broadway show with singing, with dancing, with choreography, but there's hard-hitting action. And at the end, when I was in that match, we were beating the hell out of each other, because there's people on all 4 sides, just like a wrestling show. So you really got to lay in those shots. And it's not, it's not poking fun at wrestling. It's really telling wrestling. It's not using wrestling lingo to sound cool. It's very authentic. And I think if you're a wrestling fan and you like to be entertained and you like outside the box things, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Couldn't say it any better myself. My brother, I appreciate the time. You are the man. Tell Chelsea good luck at WrestleMania and everything you guys have going on. And anytime you want to come back and be here, be on Stadium, all you got to do is call me. Thank you, brother, for the time.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you.